So earlier this week, Milkomeda announced that their chain, their sidechain that brings EVM capabilities to the Cardano ecosystem, is going to shut down. In 4 months' time, 1st of September, we will see the Milkomeda chain cease to exist. This is the official announcement here. It's been a wild ride, but as Cardano moves into a new era, we have to recognize what no longer fits its future. Milkomeda will shut down in 4 months. Please withdraw your funds before September the 1st. Any funds left after that deadline will be frozen. And it's really unfortunate that it has come to this point. I spent a huge part of my working life in the crypto space working in the Milkomeda ecosystem. So I was working for a DEX called Blueshift, and they were primarily on Milkomeda for Cardano. Of course, there was a Milkomeda on our ground as well, and Blueshift did bridge over there as well. But so much time and effort I put into trying to build up engagement, interactivity, liquidity events, all sorts of things. And it just didn't move the needle at all. And in this video, I'm going to look into what I think may have been some reasons why people didn't like the idea of moving to the sidechain on Milkomeda or building on it. And it didn't even attract users from different ecosystems, not as many as you'd expect. So this is really disappointing news overall. It didn't turn out the way that I expected things, especially with bringing EVM capabilities to Cardano. You know, that sounds amazing. And it's something that we needed back then when smart contracts weren't even launched yet. So this is definitely something that, is a bit of a bittersweet thing for me. So it hits me hard when I heard this news as well. But let's have a look at some of the stats here, some of the info, and the timeline of things that happened in Milkomeda's ecosystem that led to its shutdown as it is now. So if we look back in time here, Milkomeda did launch quite strongly. So this is back in April 2022. And you can see the amount of TVL, the liquidity coming into the chain, was very high. It reached the almost just under 100,000 USD in terms of TVL on the chain. That's really good. And this was launched across multiple different DEXs that were launched on the ecosystem. We had a lot with Muesli Swap, we had Milky Swap. Occam was quite a big player there as well. And then we had, of course, Blueshift, which was probably the most dominant DEX in the ecosystem there. And, it did fairly well. A lot of people were quite interested moving liquidity in. I'll comment a little bit about some of the liquidity movement, but, you could see that the chain did fairly well at that point in time. And, a lot of people did participate. And here are some comments from users overall. So back in 2021, I used to mine ETH, send it through multi-chain, swapped on Milkomeda, then bridge over to Cardano. Good memories. Yes, it was really good days. A lot of people participate in DeFi that way, bring in liquidity from different chains, such as Ethereum here. So, it's definitely a good thing. Here we have Kevin. I had a bunch of stuff churning on real Milky Swap. What happened to them? Actually never found out. Yeah, a lot of these teams that were building over there just disappeared. There wasn't the activity, liquidity that they're expecting, and things just closed up very quickly. And Umfi here mentions, this is what happens when you keep focusing on adding more tech without advertising and marketing. There's some other comments here, but we'll focus on this aspect here in particular. And of course, Milkomeda did put out a follow-up thread post that talked a little bit about some misunderstandings and some criticisms that they got. And let me just read out these comments here for any of the listeners that are listening on the audio version of the podcast. We want to clear up 2 misunderstandings once and for all. 1, was Cardano the problem for Milkomeda? 2, did Milkomeda ever have product market fit or even a chance at it? So here's a quick thread. So first off, Cardano, was Cardano the problem for Milkomeda? No, if we could turn back the clock, we still would build and deploy on Cardano. Developing on it was generally fun, and finding creative ways to use UTXOs was a blast, highly recommended. 2, I didn't get Milkomeda. Did it ever have product market fit or even a chance at it? It's a common misunderstanding to treat Milkomeda as a front-facing user product. It never was. You might hear, I never used Milkomeda, or I'd never had used it, and that's perfectly fine. Why? Because putting Milkomeda in front of end user was mostly marketing plays to stay on top of mind. So if it wasn't the real product, what was it? Think blockchains as countries. At that time, Cardano was a fast-growing nation with cool new projects, but almost no connections to other countries, so other blockchains. Milkomeda acted as an adapter, bridge, oracles, and other infrastructure that linked EVM and Cardano's EUTXO world. The two-way link mattered. This is a big thing for interoperability in the early days of Cardano. Milkomeda let Cardano projects trade with external chains and, just as important, let outside assets, especially stablecoins, flow into Cardano. Some people checked DeFi Llama and thought Milkomeda flopped. We looked at raw assets flows from Milkomeda and saw those numbers climb. Our reaction was, wow, it's actually working. Ethereum users were getting exposure to Cardano tokens. Cardano users were finally accessing stablecoins on Cardano dexes, not Milkomeda dexes. We felt things were on track, but crypto is risky. And of course, this is where things started to fall apart. The Nomad partnership. We partnered with the best tier 1 bridge willing to work with us, Nomad. Context, many projects, VCs, etc. would shut us down the moment they heard Cardano. And this is common across all Cardano projects that were trying to get VC funding. They declined before even opening our decks. That frustration wasn't aimed at Milkomeda. It was a blanket restriction to anything Cardano. We spent countless hours correcting misconceptions. Cardano has no smart contracts, etc., and gradually made progress, which made us pretty excited, but showing people something that they were not spotting. Back to Nomad, everything looked great. Roughly 25 to 30 million assets sat on Cardano, powering users who didn't even realize Milkomeda was underneath. Cardano projects enjoyed extra liquidity from Ethereum, traders buying their tokens. Then Nomad got hacked. Assets were never recovered, and there was no path back after that. This was the main point of the demise of Milkomeda from my point of view. Milkomeda had multiple security audits, including full formal verification, the first Cardano project to do so, but that couldn't protect us from a partner exploit. With hindsight, we shouldn't have partnered with Nomad, but at that time, it felt like the strongest option. Nomad was leading Circle's USDC CCTP, collaborating with ADAOZ for data availability, strong team with proven experience, you name it. They really did tick the boxes. You can see why we chose them. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out. We're truly sorry. And we're truly sorry. We share this context so it's clear there's more to the story than meets the eye. We had plans to add new VMs to Cardano and move beyond EVM and create models where UTXO could connect smart contracts from different VMs. Cardano is, after all, a multi-VM blockchain. But that's a thread for another day. So it's unfortunate, but let me expand on some of these aspects here and bring up some points that I'm assuming Sebastian here that might have written this thread. But have a look at their audits here. They really are one of probably the first blockchain out there to be formally verified on their bridge and also have their full chain audit as well. So this is an audit by Certic that audited the chain. And then they had follow-up audits by arbitrary execution on the bridge that they had. So this is the bridge between Milkomeda and Cardano. And this is the formal verification of the bridge as well. And that was done by Celer. You can go through this stuff if you want. It's definitely a very secure part of their ecosystem. The bridge on the Milkomeda and Cardano side is definitely something they wanted as secure as possible. So those double security audits is definitely a thing. So let me share some insights in regards to what actually happened with the Nomad bridge hack and some of these other aspects that led to the demise essentially of Milkomeda. So first off, the Nomad bridge hack. Now this was huge, and this lost 156 million worth of assets, all sorts of tokens from the EVM side of things. But the main thing that came over onto Cardano was USDC and USDT. So these two assets were seeding into various dexes such as Wing Riders and MinSwap. And anyone that had those assets on the chain, essentially they were worthless because there was nothing backing them up on the EVM side. And because of that exploit that was found, all those funds were withdrawn, and anyone that was holding those bridge assets, MAD USDC or MAD USDT, they're worthless now. And people were holding empty bags, and people were really upset. It was interesting to watch this because I was working with a lot of the DEXs out there at that point in time. I was working with ring riders, I was watching what was MinSwap was doing as well. And a lot of the blame from the liquidity providers was pointed squarely at those DEXs and not at the bridge. They blame you've destroyed my assets, my portfolio. I'm never going to work with you guys again. Blah blah blah. And it really wasn't the fault of the DEX. It wasn't the fault of Milkomeda. It wasn't a fault of their bridge. It was the fault of the Nomad bridge hack. So it's really unfortunate. There's so many pieces of the puzzle there that led to that demise and the loss of liquidity and so much of those crypto asset holdings. So it's a very sad story. And I think that was the first pin to fall that led to everything else cascading, and the first domino to fall. I think that's a better way to put it. First domino to fall to start the chain of everything else. Now, the next one here, which a lot of people in the Cardano ecosystem didn't know about because it didn't really affect them, and this was multi-chain. So when I was working with Blue Shift, we ran campaigns with multi-chain to drive liquidity in. People use multi-chain, bring the assets over to Cardano. So they were bringing assets from different ecosystems, whether it was Arbitrum, whether it was, I can't think of the other ones here, but Ethereum, and trying to bring it over to Blue Shift to Milkomeda C1 via multi-chain. So that was part of the liquidity campaigns. You had to use those bridges, move in those assets, and then start providing liquidity on the DEX. So, that was really good, and the campaigns worked, and we saw liquidity flows come in, and it worked really well. But multi-chain, this was when China was cracking down on CEOs, these rich, powerful CEOs gaining a lot of traction and attention and notoriety. In China, if you're doing well, just keep your head down and keep working. Don't make a voice. Don't get out in public, etc. And unfortunately, this CEO disappeared. Assets were lost and never recovered, and a lot of the keys that were used to manage the pools where assets were being stored were all held by that CEO. So, there are lots of problems here, lots of issues in regards to this particular hack. And let me just pull up some articles here. This one here, how much they lose? 120 million USD worth of assets in this cyber heist from the multi-chain bridge. And then, of course, after that, the CEO disappeared, and we never heard from them again. Really unfortunate as well. So a lot of people that were using Milkomeda and had assets in multi-chain, they lost assets through Nomad, and now they've lost assets through multi-chain. So it's a double whammy hit in regards to bridge breaches that absolutely killed liquidity coming into the Milkomeda ecosystem. So now there's nothing coming in. There was no inflows into Milkomeda other than the Cardano bridge. And by this time, people were very comfortable with using Cardano DEXs and weren't moving liquidity in from the Cardano side of things over to Milkomeda. There was no point. The whole idea and premise of this was that we were going to open up Cardano to other chains via Milkomeda. And with Nomad gone, with multi-chain gone, we only had Celer left, and they didn't have a massive user base. And by this time, seeing liquidity die from Milkomeda and multi-chain, Celer like, we're pulling out, guys. I'm sorry, but this is we've had enough of this, and we're not going to risk anymore. So a series of unfortunate events across the bridges. I think by this time, users were really afraid of bridges. They stopped using them, and especially when you have to bridge across two different bridges to get to the Cardano ecosystem, they've just had enough. Like, bridges were left a big sour taste in people's mouths. So we've had, in this year, we had FTX, we had Celsius, and then we had these bridge hacks. This was a really bad year for crypto, and people were losing a lot of confidence. So not only did we lose liquidity from these different bridges, we lost a lot of liquidity from all these other hacks as well. So really, really bad time. But this was the final nail in the coffin, and you can see here bridge activity, the amount of hacks and stolen assets over the year. I think it was just under 2 billion. That's a lot of money, and it all went to North Korea apparently. So North Korean linked hackers stole all these crypto assets, exited through there, and then left us with empty bags afterwards. Another one here I just want to point out is the wormhole cross-chain bridge exploit. They lost, I think they're the biggest one, 320 million. That was over to the Solana ecosystem. So by this time, people have had enough of bridges, and projects such as OneChain have been fighting this this stigma of using bridges, and they're doing a good job now. They've been in the ecosystem for 6-7 years. And been going strong, decentralized, and I do love their bridge. I do use their bridge, so it's definitely a project that you should look for in regards to bridging assets. But all these bridge hacks back in 2022 left a sour taste, and I think a lot of people do not want to use bridges because of these previous hacks throughout the years. So it's really unfortunate, but you can see that with all these things happening, people were losing interest in Milkomeda. The other thing that was quite interesting was the user experience. And I think a couple of things here that the team were trying to improve on, the Milkomeda team, and they did some really, really cool stuff, really innovative stuff. And I absolutely love some of the things they brought out. And let me just pull up this article here. And this first, actually, let me just go back. The very first thing I want to point out is Milkomeda never had its own token. The idea of Milkomeda was to use ADA, a wrapped version of ADA, so Milk ADA, M-ADA, and have that as their token within the ecosystem. It gave them a bit of an advantage because they didn't need to play and work out regulations with launching their own token. And it also helped build the Cardano ecosystem because now you have to use wrapped ADA, or essentially ADA, on their ecosystem as well. So it's more usage of ADA, more transactions, more fees, whatever it is, and it had a lot of benefits there. There are other benefits in regards to the locked ADA could earn them staking rewards and feed the Milkomeda treasury. So there's lots of benefits there. But overall, they had no token. And I think if they did go down the path of launching a token and airdropping it to all different users within the Cardano ecosystem, within various EVM ecosystems, it could have had a really big marketing effect, drawing in users from all over the place. Very similar to what the approach with Midnight is doing with their Dust and Night token. So having those ecosystem-wide tokens that were airdropped out there, people suddenly get, hey, I've got some free money here, let's go explore. So I think that could have been a really big marketing effort that Milkomeda could have done. Of course, there is that risk of creating your own token and issuing it to people, or regulations, blah, 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 whatever it might be. But if they just airdropped it for free for everyone, it may have worked. I don't know. It's a thing that I'm not very experienced with, but they were very adamant with not having their own token. But I think it could have really had a big impact. Some other things that they did that were really cool, and I had some brilliant ideas here. And one of them was around the user experience of bringing assets in. So one of them was the fractionalization of stablecoins. And this is some of the stuff that they were building and innovating. And it was the canonicalization of those assets. So let's say you bring in USDC, USDT, DAI, whatever it is. So you bring in stablecoin assets from all these different ecosystems. And on one DEX, you might have a lot of USDT. On another DEX, you might have a lot of USDC. And it's fragmenting all the liquidity all over the place. And then, of course, then you bring it over to Cardano as well. So the liquidity is all over the place. So instead, they could have bridged everything in and it will automatically convert it to one stable coin within the Milkomeda ecosystem and just have it as that. That would have boosted liquidity greatly. I don't think that was ever deployed. I think it was written, smart contracts were all there, but it was never deployed on the main chain. And I think that would have had a really big benefit as well, because we did see the fragmentation of those particular assets. So I think that would have been a really cool thing if they could have deployed that. The other thing, it's not in this particular article that they wrote, but it was the wrapped smart contracts. This was amazing. I thought wrapped smart contracts were one of the best things that they could have brought out there. And essentially here, this is Tangle Swap. This was a project from IOTA, the IOTA blockchain that launched onto Cardano via Milkomeda. So here you could connect your wallet. You can connect any of these Cardano wallets. You know them all. But what that would do was connect to an API that would write the transactions, but then connect to the Milkomeda bridge, and then deploy all the assets on the EVM side of things. So it would make you an EVM a wallet that was mapped to your Cardano wallet. So there was a lot of smarts in here. The only thing with that experience was because bridge takes a little bit of time, it takes about 5 minutes to move assets from Cardano to Milkomeda and then back again into your other wallet, your Cardano wallet here. The whole swapping experience took, 5-7 minutes to do. And in comparison, when you looked at other DEXs on Cardano, you could swap within 30 seconds at the most. The user experience there was kind of killed. But it could have had a lot of benefit if a lot of other EVM DEXs started deploying over here, or perpetuals started deploying over on Milkomeda. So I was working with the team from Polygon DEX. I can't remember what it was called now, but they had a big DEX over there and they had perpetuals. And if they went, we'll fork our code and deploy Milkomeda, they could have had a leading product there that connected via Cardano wallet, and then we could have had perpetuals and really big swaps directly via the Milkomeda ecosystem. So we had the potential for a lot of cool things, but no one really wanted to engage with it because they didn't see the liquidity flowing in anymore because of those bridge hacks. So the user experience was possibly getting to a point where we could have seen a lot more adoption, but I think it was maybe a year too late. And of course, those bridge hacks just made things fall apart. The other bad thing, well, not bad thing, but the other resistance point was a lot of Cardano users don't like Metamask. We don't use Metamask. When you hear Metamask, you think, you're going to get hacked. So Metamask was probably the go-to wallet within any of the DEXs within the Milkomeda ecosystem. So if anyone had to first suddenly get into crypto, they discover it, think, wow, this is amazing. They get their heads wrapped around how a Cardano wallet works. Then suddenly they have to create a brand new wallet with Metamask and then learn how that one works. And they find a very clunky and disjointed user experience. And I think that was a bit of a resistance point for Cardano users moving in. Really Metamask should have opened up the Cardano ecosystem to the millions of users that did actually use Metamask and could have deployed and started working on Milkomeda DEXs and other protocols. It's unfortunate it didn't get the reach. So, there's a lot of aspects there that, could have been improved on, but unfortunately didn't come through. Now, there were a lot of other user experience issues as well. There was when you bridge your assets over to a Milkomeda ecosystem, you lose your staking rewards, you lose your voting rights. So people in the early days, I literally saw this like TVL going up and down every 5 days at every epoch switchover. People were moving their liquidity over to Milkomeda to gain on the DeFi rewards there. But then before the epoch swap and changeover, that snapshot date every 5 days, they move all that liquidity back to their Cardano wallet, get that snapshot, and then move it back to Milkomeda again. So these were whales moving assets back and forth. And that was clunky, but they did work on various proposals so that you could still earn your staking rewards and things like that afterwards. But it was too late for that kind of stuff. Very, very unfortunate. But these series of events unfortunately has led to Milkomeda's downfall and closure coming up in this September. So I don't know, guys. I loved the idea of Milkomeda. Bringing EVM capabilities to Cardano, I thought was absolutely amazing. I worked with many of the team members there, working on marketing initiatives, and they were awesome to work with. The Blue Shift team that I worked with over the year and a half when I was at Blue Shift, Zena, Serge, Igor, they were a brilliant team to work with, and I learned so much in regards to working with a startup, how to work with other companies to bring in liquidity campaigns, all sorts of things that we did to try and drive momentum and traction. And unfortunately, none of it worked because of these series of events. The Nomad bridge hack essentially stopped everything in the early days. Multichain was just a second stab in the heart just to kill off all liquidity that was coming in, the last little bit of it. And then other marketing efforts. If we could have had like a big ecosystem-wide marketing, it may have saved the chain, but a little too late. Maybe that should have been done even before the Nomad bridge was considered. But little things like that. Maybe hindsight's a great thing. That's all I can say. Hindsight's a great thing. But guys, if you have any fond memories of playing around with Milkomeda, leave a comment down below. There were some really cool days. It was very exciting to watch Cardano grow and watch the Milkomeda ecosystem grow. And mad respect to any of the builders, the devs from the Milkomeda team and any project that deployed a Milkomeda. You really got your hands dirty and dug in to try and deliver something for the Cardano users and broader DeFi crypto users as well. So big hands up, big thumbs up to you guys. But like I said, leave a comment down below if you have any fond memories. If you lost funds, let me know as well. I think we all did. But it's times are moving on. Cardano's evolving. We have brand new L2 solutions. I've seen demos of Midgard L2 solution for Cardano from Bidlerfest over the last couple of days, and it looks amazing. Everyone is praising it. We've got brand new dev tools that are coming out from TX Pipe with TX3. And that looks amazing as well. It looks like we have full developer suites with scaling coming up for Cardano. This is going to be a really exciting year. And, with things like that coming about, we don't need Milkomeda anymore. We have different ways to gain interoperability. We have one chain bringing in assets directly to the Cardano ecosystem. So we don't have two bridge hops. We have just one, and things are looking really good. But guys, if you like this video episode, if you like my bit of a rant here talking about my experience in the Milkomeda ecosystem, like I said, sad to see it go. But guys, please leave that thumbs up, like, subscribe, notification bell. I'll see you guys in the next video.